All right, guys, let's want to welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick will be doing our top 10 impact transfers in the class of 2023. Transfer portal is mainly in the books. Most of the big names are all heading to their new schools. And today, we're going to be breaking down our top 10 quarterbacks in order. Looking at number 10, Cade McNamara from Michigan to Iowa. I think it's going to be a respectable impact here for the Hawkeyes. Some of the positives for him. He leads a winning team in 2021, and he's a game manager, which certainly is also leading into the negative. The ceiling, I think, for McNamara to uplift this offense is kind of limited just because the system's not great. And we've also seen what McNamara does as a quarterback being a game manager. So I think he's a good fit, but at the same time, your ceiling is already kind of limited coming into Iowa. So 2,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 picks in 2021 for Michigan during that playoff run. I thought he did very well with this running game complementing him. They finally had a bit of a downfield attack. He had a great game against Michigan State. I thought he was pretty good against Wisconsin that year as well. 2 road games. Wasn't bad against Penn State either. That was a late game. They ended up winning 21-17 late in the year. He had 3 touchdowns. And McNamara putting it on his arm was a big reason why. And then he also performed very well as a game manager against Ohio State. So McNamara's not bad, Nick, by any means. But Iowa, they do finally have a quarterback that can throw an accurate football. That's something they've not had in a while, it seems. Spencer Petraw's the last couple of years is not good one bit. Not a fan of his. But again, the biggest reason why it might not work is the system certainly limits the passer's ability and the limited weapons. They've had plenty of guys transfer out. The running game just not existing anymore at Iowa. The system clearly needs to go. That's why Wisconsin made an abrupt fire in the middle of the season. Kirk Ferentz might be next.
I agree. The system is poor in Iowa. This is not really a great quarterback-friendly system. It's not a really offensive-friendly system at all. Their weapons are very poor. Cade McNamara is not a bad quarterback by any stretch of the imagination when you give him good weapons, but I just wonder how good he's going to be when his weapons are significantly weaker than what he had at Michigan. Had a good year in 2021, but it was very obvious he was not the future in Ann Arbor as J.J. McCarthy takes over. I think this has potential to fall apart very quickly if McNamara just can't find the passes that he needs to complete because he just doesn't have the talent around him. I think this is a tough fit for me because I just think Iowa's offense is very poor, and they're going to have to fire their coach and make a system change. They won't have any success in the Big Ten anytime soon.
And that is unfortunate. Ferent's been there a long time. He's been a great head coach, but the system has to go or he will be the one that's gone. So looking at number 9, Tony Muskett from Monmouth to Virginia. Very underrated name that many have probably never heard of until this episode. Very tall task this offseason in more ways than one for Tony Elliott, Nick. Of course, the awful tragedy in Charlottesville. And on top of that, you have your coordinator, your coordinator stays, but Brian Armstrong, he departs. This offense last year was terrible. It was not good. Brian Armstrong was not good one bit. Very tough to adjust to this system, but this is a guy they got now that fits much better into this system in Muskett. Des Kitchings specifically brought him in to run this system. The deep ball accuracy, the football IQ are some things that stand out about Muskett. Can he adjust to the play speed of the ACC? I think is one of his negatives. Not much film on this guy. 6'2", 210, that's a very ideal size. As a 3-year starter at Monmouth, though, he's 5,700 yards, 51 touchdowns, had a handful of FBS offers. He comes to Virginia. They've had success before in the transfer portal with a quarterback, Bryce Perkins, many years back. He came from the JUCO ranks, and he was very good. Armstrong was after him, and now here, Muskett. He's going to have to win the starting job, but I think he's going to have a leg up. He did actually break his leg in the final couple of games, was missed at Monmouth due to that. So he only played 8 games last year, so he's got to recover from that, and then he's got to get in here and learn this playbook. Overall, what are your thoughts right now, not just Muskett coming to UVA, but the whole state of the program?
Yeah, I think Virginia finds itself in a tough situation. Of course, it's not on them. I'm not going to blame them for finding themselves in this tough situation. The tragedy that happened in Charlottesville earlier this year, is extremely upsetting, and I can understand how that's a difficult thing to go through. I'm really not going to try and blame the players or anyone in that staff for what happened during that tragic weekend in November. Tony Elliott did not have the best first season. Brennan Armstrong did not really live up to expectations. I had him having a fantastic year. I thought he was going to be the ACC Offensive Player of the Year, and it just all fell apart, did not work at all. Muskett, good size, smart player, like the deep ball accuracy. This is a huge jump from Monmouth to the ACC, so I don't really know if he's going to really be able to make that change fully. The tape on him, there isn't a whole lot of tape, and if there is a lot of it out there, I haven't seen much of it yet, just because it's hard to find the quality tape that you need to see for him. I think this is a tough fit. I think it has potential if he can find. I think this one has his boomer bust potential. Certainly, I think Virginia have boomer bust potential written all over them next year. But I'm going to lean to Virginia struggling a little bit next year, and maybe their offense will struggle as well.
Look at number 8, Phil Jurkovich. He instantly went to Pitt when he entered the portal from Boston College. This is a guy that certainly, really was battle tested. He battled some injuries in 2021. His injury really just derailed what could have been a really good football team. And then 2022, his entire offensive line was departing. The one guy that was returning, Christian Mahogany, tore an ACL. One of the worst running games I've ever seen at Boston College, 63 yards per game. Dracovic made the best of what he could out of the situation. Zay Flowers, of course, was tremendous. That was about it, though. He got injured late in the year. He also kind of struggled, under a 60% completion rate, 11 touchdowns, 8 picks, about 214 yards per game. But him reuniting here with Frank Cignetti Jr. is big because he really fits this system. And that's why he was so good a couple years back, where they can run the football, which is obviously Frank Cignetti's MO. And then Dracovic is phenomenal off the play action. Guy at 6'5", 214. He's dropped a little bit of weight here. He can stand tall in the pocket. And again, he's really good off play action, a lot of toughness. Negatives is his confidence shot. Throws off the back foot often. He's also a slow processor at times. But he's a good fit for this system. I think the biggest reason why he might not is inexperience on the O-line might cause a headache. And eligibility is obviously a big mystery anytime you look at the depth chart. But if I had to guess, I believe when I looked at it, everyone on the Pitt depth chart on the offensive line was a redshirt senior. So I'm pretty sure all 5 starters are departing. It could be wrong on that. But regardless, there's going to be a lot of inexperience up front. I think that might be the biggest problem here for Dracovic.
I agree. A youthful offensive line could be a problem for him at Pitt this year. I think this is a good fit for Pitt. I think Dracovic is a great quarterback when he's fully healthy. I think he's got good arm strength, stand in the pocket, good on the play action, tough fighter, hangs in there. You can take a few hits here and there. Reigniting with offensive coordinator makes a whole lot of sense. I just worry. I think you make a great point. The offensive line, a revolving door most likely, a new fresh face here in Pitt. I think that could be a struggle as these guys are inexperienced. It could really struggle to kind of protect him. If he does not get protected, he's going to make some mistakes. He had some happy feet at Boston College in the past, made some mistakes, threw the ball when he should not have. I think this is a good fit here. I think Pitt have good potential in the ACC. I think the ACC is wide open next year, and I think Pitt have potential to make some noise if Dracovic can stay healthy and find some talented wide receivers to throw to.
Conte Mumpfield, Bud Means, 2 of their best receivers look like they are coming back. So that's certainly big for this football team. Very interested to see how Dracovic does at Pitt. Look at number 7, Devin Leary from NC State to Kentucky. The year did not quite go the way we expected for NC State. Devin Leary only ended up playing 6 games. The offensive line was not very good. They could not run the ball one bit, so it was certainly more one-dimensional than they would have liked for. He wasn't very good himself. He had 11 passing touchdowns in those 6 games. 8 of them came against UConn and Charleston Southern. The other games was not very good. Struggled against ECU. A lot of inaccuracies in that first game against Clemson. Again, one-dimensional offense. I thought he played pretty good. There's some pretty solid tape on that one. And then he was not good at all in a 2-point win over Florida State, and then he didn't play the rest of the year. The offense was certainly not the same without his presence and his leadership there. But he certainly underperformed. I'm not going to blame it all on him, though. But it's not going to be any easier here at Kentucky, Nick. It's kind of the same exact situation, honestly. Some of the positives, though. Leary does have great accuracy, top-notch toughness. The mechanics, I think, are certainly above most. Doesn't have great physical tools, though. Velocity and the zip certainly waver the further he throws downfield. And that's something they don't have. They did have this past year in Will Levis. I think that's why it makes sense for Leary. He's going to come in and replace a guy that's great. I don't know if you saw the bowl game or not, but if you did, Kentucky, very bad at quarterback. Just a complete disaster. Opportunity to play in the SEC is a big deal for any player. And back to why it might not work, though, is the offense lacked production last year. The depth at skill positions is not ideal. Offensive line is very lackluster. Chris Rodriguez really carried this offense at times. The running game was not good. This is the exact same situation, Nick. So why did Devin Leary go to Kentucky?
He ends up going to Kentucky. I think he realizes there is an opportunity for him to grow as a player, playing in the SEC, get a good opportunity playing in serious competition and try and raise a draft stock if he has any draft stock currently. Love the accuracy, good mechanics. I love the leadership. Great guy in the locker room. The type of player you want to see. I think he saw what Kentucky did with Will Levis. Will Levis transferred in, came from Penn State, didn't look like he had the best potential at the next level, kind of just struggled. And then over 2 years, he's thrown himself into a potential top 10 pick in the NFL draft with limited weapons at Kentucky. I think Devin Leary sees this as an opportunity to grow his own draft stock. Kentucky's not a bad team by any means. I think as long as their offensive line gets better and they can protect the quarterback, he has potential to break out at Kentucky. Certainly the running game is the focus in Lexington, but I think Devin Leary, his size, his accuracy, mechanics, this has certainly worked. The offense was really poor this year. If the offensive line can step up and protect him, I think Devin Leary has huge potential to be a strong player for this Kentucky Wildcats team because I just think his leadership, his mechanics, and accuracy will carry him. This is a huge opportunity for him, but if his offensive line is poor and he gets hit a lot, this team could struggle and find themselves in the same position they were this past season.
Rich Scangrello, his first year as offensive coordinator, he was actually fired, and they brought back Liam Cohen, who was the OC in 2021. The offense was great, over They had phenomenal points per game. And they're going to bring him back this year to, try to uplift a unit that was awful last year. So I think this could certainly work. But it remains to be seen, though, because I think some of the depth and offensive line issues are real concerns. Look at number 6, Shedeur Sanders from Jackson State to Colorado. He's going to be a big impact transfer this year. The positives on him: athletic, can rip passes with velocity, extending the immediate range. He's not just Deion Sanders' son. This is a former guy that was a 4-star. I believe he was committed to SMU at some point. So people forget that. This was a former guy that was ranked high up on his recruiting cycle. Arm talent isn't elite by any means. Inconsistent base. Certainly a lot of improvement is left for Shedeur. So some of the negatives I'm not too worried about. And of course, why it made sense. He followed his dad. Why it might not make sense. Well, there's no reason for it not to, because he was going to follow Deion anywhere he went. Doesn't matter if it was Georgia Tech, Colorado, or another FCS school. He was obviously going to go there. So it's going to make sense. Will it be a successful tenure or not? That remains to be seen, though.
I think Colorado, you could not, there was no way to do worse than this, right? Sanders is a fantastic player, had a great time at Jackson State. Yes, the jump from FCS to FBS is huge, but he follows his dad. He was always going to follow his dad. This was the easiest pick for him to go to Colorado. Athletic, strong player. Colorado were so bad last year. Anyone at this point is an improvement. I think he's going to have a great setup. They're going to build a system around him. His dad's going to, sort of build this offense for him. I think this makes a whole lot of sense for both parties involved. It's an exciting, young, athletic player to take over a Colorado team that really, again, the floor for this team is so low. This team was not good last year, one of the worst in the country. They have a new life here with Deion Sanders and brings his son in. His son's going to start and he's going to have a fun time. I think this is going to be great because whatever happens at Colorado, even if they win, only 4 or 5 games, it's better than winning 1 game. So I think the sky is the limit in Colorado. I think Sanders is going to have a fantastic time, and he has great potential here to develop as a quarterback.
QB play at Boulder has been terrible, 118th in passing offense this past year. Brendan Lewis, JT Shrout were not good, and then they were 126th in 2021. They had only 40 more yards per game through the air than Army. That's a very embarrassing comparison to make. So, number 5, DJ Uiagalelei leaves Clemson for Oregon State. We knew it was going to happen eventually, and it finally ended up coming to fruition. DJ, some positives on him. Big arm, good zip, a big frame guy, follows forward as a runner. He's tough to stop when he's confident, Nick. We've seen that in the Wake Forest game. That was about it, though. Negatives, though. Rhythm and timing has just been awful. I thought he was much better this past year than he was 2 seasons ago, but nowhere near the same tape that we saw when he replaced Trevor Lawrence for 2 games a couple years back. He was elite in those 2 games. We've not really seen that much since. It's been very far and few for DJ. Jonathan Smith, a former QB guru at Washington, comes to Oregon State, and I think he's done great work with this football program in Corvallis. The biggest problem for me is Oregon State's quarterback play was surprisingly very poor this past year. Jake Luton a couple years back in his second year with Smith was exceptional. He had only 3 picks, 28 touchdowns. I think he had almost 3,000 yards as well. And I expected big things this past year out of Chance Nolan in his second year. He was awful. Had more picks than touchdowns. Oregon State as a whole, passing attack was awful. They beat Oregon in the season finale despite having only 60 passing yards and 2 interceptions on 6 completions. That just shows you how good this football team is, despite how poor quarterback play has been. I think it makes sense for DJ to come in here. He's obviously going to give them a big boost. Polished quarterback coach in Smith. A great offensive line as well. The reason why it might not make sense is DJ has been incredibly inefficient, and that matches what Oregon State's passing game was this past season. So there's a potential this is a complete disaster. How do you see it going?
I saw a lot of people on social media making fun of DJ for making the move to Oregon State, saying it was a fall from grace for the former 5-star leaving Clemson. I think this is a great fit, though. I think he gets a new lease on life here, new opportunity in an Oregon State team that was really good last year outside of their quarterback play. A great defense, good offense on the ground. They just could not figure it out in the passing game. Now he steps in, a lot less pressure in Oregon State compared to Clemson. When you look at the film from the 2 games that he stepped in for Trevor Lawrence during the COVID year, against Notre Dame, against Boston College, he looked phenomenal. I was sure that he was going to step in and be a star after that. I picked him to be my Heisman in 2021. Obviously, that fell apart very quickly, as did the Clemson season. And now he goes to Oregon State, though, and has a new chance. Big arm, great frame, good zip, very talented player. Obviously, a very talented player. He was a 5-star at one point for a reason. I think this makes a whole lot of sense. This is probably one of the best players on the list in terms of fit-wise. I think he's going to have a great chance here to succeed. I think they're going to be fantastic at Oregon State. I think he's going to step up and really kind of find he is still the talented quarterback that he was when he recruited at Clemson.
Look at number 4, Jack Plummer. He was on this list a season ago because I really thought he would uplift Cal. And I think he did. He had 3,000 passing yards, but they went from 23.8 points per game to 23.9. That's not much of an improvement one bit. Not really his fault, though, because I think he did his job. 21 touchdowns, almost 3,100 yards, only 9 picks. I really thought that he would help elevate them more to have more success, but they just did not do that. Justin Wilcox really struggling to figure things out there in Cal, but I think he's going to be a great fit here going to Louisville. Reunites with Jeff Brom, has the entire offense to himself. One thing that allowed Aiden O'Connell to spring forward this past year or two was that he finally had the keys to the offense, because this was a team that ran a 2-quarterback system at Purdue for a long time. I don't really know why. 6'5", 220, though, great size from Plummer. This is a guy that has good touch at all levels of the field, very confident in the pocket, understands the system. You have a guy that's going to come in day one, he's going to lead this system. A lot of athleticism on this Louisville offense. Some of the negatives, though, needs to find some control with his passes. He likes to sail them a little high sometimes. Not very mobile one bit, and the lower body mechanics certainly cause those higher throws. Air raid attack, though, so obviously those negatives are expected. I think this is a great fit, Nick. That's why he's high up on this list. This is going to be a big year, I think, for Plummer. I think you're looking at 3,500 to 4,000 passing yards. The ceiling may be reached with him, but he has great size and he has some good raw talent. I think you're looking at the same thing we saw with Aiden O'Connell, a guy that really sprung forward when he had the keys to himself.
I think this is a good fit. It's going to be a bit of a different quarterback type of play at Louisville now that they have a new coach. I think the days of the running-focused quarterback are going to be gone. I think Jack Plummer has potentially here to stay in the pocket, absolute air the ball out, confident, understands the system. Love the skill that he has. Jeff Brom steps in here, leads the whole offense here. I think this is a perfect fit for Jack Plummer. I like the weapons he has at Louisville as well. I think there's some serious talent this wide in this ACC. I think the touch there, good confident in the pocket. Like I said, I think this makes a lot of sense for Jack Plummer. I think he has potential to hit that high notch. 3,500 to 4,000 yards is certainly achievable for this quarterback. This is a great fit. I think there's a lot of success potential here in Louisville.
And moving us to number 3, Brennan Armstrong. Out goes Devin Leary, and his former, same conference counterpart is replacing him, mainly because Robert Anai, his former offensive coordinator, we had great success with 2 years ago, where he set school records. He leaves, tries to inherit a new system under Tony Elliott that leads to 17 points per game, 7 touchdowns, 12 picks, 55% completion rate. Wasn't as efficient as a runner either. He was just flat out awful last year, Nick, and I think that's why this might not work. Is like we said with a few guys earlier, is his confidence gone? I think that's a big problem that needs to be addressed. Incredibly one-dimensional unit last season for NC State also. I don't know if that's going to change. Some of the negatives for him, he doesn't always use his feet to throw, and he's an aggressive guy that turns the ball over. This is a gunslinger, though. Good under pressure. He really thrives under pressure, it seems. He scans the field, throws with anticipation and accuracy. This was a guy projected to be a breakout star heading into 2021. That's exactly what he did. 4,500 yards through the air, but I thought he would do it more with his legs as well, because in 2020, he showcased some really impressive abilities on the ground at 500-plus yards. He has some really good speed for his size of 6'2", 215. Brennan Armstrong proved me right in 2021, was completely awful a season ago. Do you anticipate him getting back to his normal form, or do you think this is going to be another sluggish effort considering some of the surrounding factors, especially with this run game and the offensive line?
I think Brennan Armstrong has some serious potential here to succeed at NC State with his former coordinator take in control of the reins of the offense. Moves from ACC program to ACC program. I think it's an easy switch for Brennan Armstrong. It was a terrible year at Virginia last year. The new system just did not work out, one-dimensional for sure. Now he heads to NC State, gets back into his comfort zone with his former coordinator. Certainly the confidence may be lost, but he's a gunslinger. Pressure, great at reading defenses, high football IQ. I think this guy has a serious potential here to light it up for NC State. This is not a bad NC State roster. They disappointed certainly last year, but I think they have some potential here to be a solid team in the ACC this year. Again, this year, the ACC is wide open this year, so NC State could certainly make some noise. I think Brennan Armstrong should have a good year. I like him to throw the ball a lot. Gunslinger, hopefully use his feet some more. I think this could work out well for NC State. The Wolfpack have potential here with this quarterback.
Now looking at number 2, Sam Hartman, 2 Notre Dame. I did make an entire video on this. If you want to see that breakdown will be below. Some of the positives on Hartman: he's got a strong arm, a respectable velocity, good command when he was with the Demon Deacons. Some of his negatives, though: turnover prone if I've ever seen one. I believe he has 40-plus career interceptions. His ratio of games played to picks is pretty wild. His mechanics are also not very polished either, which that comes with running that mesh-style offense. It really doesn't allow you to develop your mechanics that much. So that's certainly something Tommy Rees is going to work with this year. Drew Pine struggled immensely last year when Tyler Buckner was hurt. Buckner came back, looked really good in the bowl game. So he does have to beat him out, but I think he's certainly going to have a leg up. He's played over 5 years. He is the conference's all-time leader in passing yards. In the passing game, had no downfield presence one bit last year for Notre Dame. I think they were like 116th in, I think, 30-plus yard passing plays last year. Michael Mayer now departs. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of proven weapons out wide. They do have some great guys like Joe Walt coming back in the offensive line, so I think this is certainly going to give him the ability to drop back and, kind of open up the playbook a bit compared to what he was doing at Wake Forest. And why it might not work, though, is this is an iffy scheme fit, Nick. Does Notre Dame also have those weapons that take advantage of having this type of quarterback? We'll see what Tommy Rees does, but when I did my breakdown, I wasn't convinced this was a perfect fit.
I think I agree this has potential to bust here for Notre Dame. The turnovers are just ridiculous. So Sam Hartman, incredibly turnover prone, just makes mistakes, happy feet in the pocket, just throws the ball when he shouldn't to bad situations. And I don't think Notre Dame has the weapons available for him. This is a guy that needs talented weapons to throw to, and I just don't think that Notre Dame really has that.
Onto and find these guys that hit him
open in the field. Strong arm, good command, but the turnovers, they're poor. The mechanics are poor. It's going to need a lot of coaching here at Notre Dame. I just think this one has a mess written all over because I think the turnovers are going to be there, and I think that Notre Dame fans are going to get really annoyed with the turnovers and the lack of production early on because the weapons are just not that great here in South Bend.
41 interceptions in 48 games. That is the ratio. Almost 13,000 yards, though, in his time at Wake Forest. Before we move to number one, here's some honorable mentions because obviously there's a lot of movement in the portal. Can't cover everybody. We're going to try to give everyone their shine, though. Walker Howard commits to Ole Miss. Spencer Sanders does the next day. Not sure what Lane Kiffin's got going on down there, but he's got something in the works. Drew Pine joins up with Kenny Dillingham, leaving the aforementioned Irish. Keaton Slovis replaces Jaron Hall at BYU. Jeff Sims heads to Lincoln to join up with Matt Rule. Colin Shield have to beat out Dante Moore at UCLA. Comes over from Kent State after a very good year, replacing Dustin Crum. Hudson Card, the former Longhorn, heads to Purdue. Jacoby Criswell, I think this might be a great fit for next year, not so much in 2023, as KJ Jefferson returns to Arkansas. And then Haynes King is going to Georgia Tech. Who on this list stands out to you? Who do you most expect to probably hit bust here, or boom, rather, on this honorable mention list?
I think the best boom potential is Hudson Card. I think the fit at Purdue is fantastic. I think he has a good opportunity. We saw it in limited times in the past at Texas. Hudson Card's not a bad player. We saw him get some snaps due to injuries here and there. I think he's a good player, good arm, good strength, good pocket presence. I think Hudson Card got a real opportunity at Purdue. I like that fit a whole lot.
Yeah, kind of like I love the fit of Criswell in 2 years. Of course, they're having some problems with their offensive coordinator. Kendall Browse did leave. We'll see what happens, though. Looking at number one, Tanner Mordecai, SMU to Wisconsin. I think this is just a great fit because Phil Longo comes over to Wisconsin. I'm telling you, Luke Fickell's making some changes immediately here. They also picked up some guys in the portal at pass catcher. CJ Williams from USC is one of them. Some of the positives here: NFL-like arm, great zip, rips it on the run. He's a tight window thrower downfield. The touch is inconsistent, and the throwing mechanics on the run are not exactly great, but that's something he certainly showed the ability to do. This is a perfect fit for Phil Longo's offense. We just seen what Drake May did this past year. Sam Hartman in the past as well. Tanner Mordecai is going to come in here, and I think he's going to produce. I think he's a perfect fit with his skill set. But the reason it might not work is the lack of weapons, and the complete scheme change could lead to a lot of growing pains here in this final year. Wisconsin finally does what we wanted them to do. They make changes to their offensive rotation. I think that might lead to a lot of negatives this year, though, Nick, because they're not great at wide receiver. They do have Braylon Allen, of course. I think Ches Malusi's still there. So the backfield's still loaded, but when it comes to pass catchers, Mordecai is not going to have guys like he had at SMU or even Oklahoma.
I agree. The scheme fit will make this a little bit difficult, but I think Mordecai here is a great potential at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell's come in day one make change. Gets a quarterback here with an NFL arm, great zip, solid player, good field vision, high football IQ. I think this is a great fit in terms of just the absolute raw potential. Does he have a lot of talent to throw to? Not necessarily. They're going to have to see some step up from some of these guys on the roster, but I think Wisconsin, it may not be competitive. They may not be super competitive this year, but they're going to be a lot better in the future. I think Luke Fickell is the perfect hire. I think they're going to transition to a more high-paced, high-speed offense. I think Mordecai is the first piece in that with Phil Longo. I think they're going to kind of develop this more of a high-paced, higher-speed offense. We've never seen it out of Wisconsin. This is a huge transition period in Madison. This team has a lot of potential in the future, and I think this is a good starting piece. He's got 1 year of eligibility. We'll see what he can do with that year.
That's me for today's episode, guys. Nick, this is a pretty good class, I would say, of quarterbacks. Who are you most excited for heading into 2023 that was on this list or potentially not on this list?
I think Jack Plummer at Louisville is the one that I'm looking at. I think Louisville have a chance to make some noise. I've said it a few times in this episode, but the ACC is pretty weak overall. There's a lot of question marks. I think outside of Clemson and Florida State, there's a lot of question marks in the ACC top to bottom. Because when you look at it, even like the better tier teams like UNC, there's still a million questions on defense. So I think outside of Florida State and Clemson, the ACC is wide open in my book. And if Jack Plummer can come in with Jeff Brom's system and really start to put up positive numbers early on with solid weapons that the Cardinals have, they could find themselves competing potentially early on in the season. I think Jack Plummer at Louisville makes a lot of sense. It's a good fit for me. I think that's going to be a fun, exciting team to watch.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the top two guys on our list, Mordecai and Hartman, two guys that are going to upgrade the QB situations at their respective school, and it should be interesting to see how they can transition those offenses this year. Two guys that can contend if they got better at those positions. They finally appear to have done so. So I think it's very exciting to watch. It's going to be a great year. It's going to be a fun offseason as well. It's going to be it for today's episode. Nick, I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing what these quarterbacks do at their new schools.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.